Have you ever wondered why some women linger in a man's psyche long after she has walked away, like an echo he cannot silence? Picture a garden where one flower grows apart from the rest, not because it shouts with color, but because its fragrance lingers in the soil itself. These are the women who embody something archetypal, something older than memory. And once a man has touched that presence, he cannot return to the world of the ordinary without feeling the loss as a wound. Jung would say she is not merely a woman but a mirror through which the anima, the inner feminine image within every man, rises from the depths. To him she becomes both muse and mirror, lover and oracle, carrying the weight of his hidden longings and unhealed shadows. Yet to herself, she is not trying to be unforgettable. She simply inhabits her essence with a depth most dare not touch, and that depth unsettles because it exposes the hollowness of what came before. The high priestess archetype moves in silence, carrying mystery not as performance but as nature. She makes a man feel as if he has glimpsed something sacred, and once sacredness is tasted, banality feels like dust. The first trait that lingers is her unyielding presence. She does not beg to be seen, nor shrink when eyes turn toward her. She becomes like the mountain, immovable, steady, existing before his gaze ever fell upon her. For a man used to women bending and reshaping themselves to his comfort, her refusal to diminish is both terrifying and magnetic. He feels both small and alive in her orbit. And when she leaves, the silence left behind is unbearable, because it confronts him with the truth that he has only ever known shadows of connection before her. The second is her way of reflecting his hidden self back to him. This is not intentional but an inevitable effect of her depth. When he speaks, he feels heard not only in words but in the unsaid spaces between them. When he confesses weakness, she does not pity but sees strength in his vulnerability. Through her, he glimpses a self he has long denied. And once a man has tasted his own authenticity in the presence of another, he cannot go back to living in masks without grief. Losing her feels like losing himself. But presence and reflection alone do not bind memory so deeply. It is her mystery that wraps around him like smoke. She reveals pieces but never all, holding her sovereignty as something sacred. She is known yet unknowable, close yet unreachable, like the moon casting light across water that can never be grasped. For a man addicted to control, this ungraspability drives him to obsession. She will not collapse into his possession, and so he is left to chase a ghost long after her body has gone. And yet here lies the paradox. Her power is not manipulation. She does not weave illusions to trap. Rather, she simply refuses to betray herself, and in a world where most shrink to fit, her refusal feels mythical. Jung would call this the individuation of the feminine, a woman who has married her shadow, who no longer hides her contradictions. She is both soft and fierce, luminous and shadowed, and her wholeness strikes like lightning. A man touched by lightning cannot mistake candlelight for the same thing. The microshift here is simple yet radical. Stop shrinking the parts of yourself that feel too much, too intense, too emotional, too wise, too silent. Men forget the many who mimic what they expect. They never forget the one who remains what she is without apology. When you walk into a room, carry the truth that you do not need to be chosen to be real. Let them feel the weight of a presence that exists with or without their recognition. But remember the red thread, the cracked mirror. In every encounter with such a woman, a man sees both beauty and fracture, his reflection shattered by the revelation of her depth. And he will keep reaching back, even in dreams, trying to piece together what he lost. The question is not why these women cannot be forgotten, but whether you are ready to embody the archetype of the unforgettable without softening your edges for comfort. Because the moment you dare to hold your wholeness, you become the mirror he fears and the memory he craves. But what happens when the mirror turns to face you? He thinks he remembers her laughter, but it is not the sound he cannot escape. It is the silence that followed, the pause in which he was forced to face himself. That is the second scar the unforgettable woman leaves. She does not numb his wounds, she exposes them. Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden self we bury in the unconscious, and the woman aligned with her own shadow becomes a lantern in the darkness of another. She illuminates not by soothing, but by showing. And when she departs, the light withdraws, leaving him to stumble in a cavern he no longer pretends does not exist. She embodies paradox, and paradox is the soul's most intoxicating riddle. She can be tender yet unyielding, playful yet profound, vulnerable yet untouchable. This coexistence of opposites unsettles because it awakens the archetype of the sacred feminine, the mother and the temptress, the muse and the destroyer, all woven into one. A man feels both healed and undone, lifted and dismantled, as though he has met a goddess who refuses worship and demands only recognition. Once he has tasted that complexity, the simplicity of surface-level charm becomes unbearable. Her third trait is her refusal to be owned. He may try to capture her with promises, control her with expectations, or anchor her with jealousy. Yet she moves like water, seeping through fingers, taking shape only when she chooses. She does not rebel for rebellion's sake. She simply belongs to herself first, and this sovereignty disrupts every power game he has relied upon. He cannot conquer what does not seek safety in his conquest. And so, her absence burns deeper than her presence, because she remains unpossessable even in memory. This sovereignty is not cold. It is woven with a compassion that cuts deeper than indulgence ever could. When she listens with her whole being. When she cares without agenda. But when boundaries are crossed, she closes the gate, not with anger but with finality. For a man used to endless chances, her no is sacred law. In that moment, he realizes he has encountered someone whose love is gift, not obligation. And the loss of such a gift reverberates through years like a bell he cannot unring. The micro-action here is to honor your boundaries as living altars. Do not let fear of abandonment weaken the threshold of your sacred space. Say no without performance, and say yes without hesitation. This balance is the soil in which your sovereignty grows. For the unforgettable woman, self-betrayal is the only sin. Her refusal to betray herself is what makes her memory eternal. The high priestess archetype whispers here, she who sits at the threshold between the seen and unseen, guarding the hidden mysteries of the soul. She knows that revealing everything kills desire, while revealing nothing kills connection. So she opens the veil just enough, letting a man glimpse eternity without granting him dominion over it. This dance leaves him haunted. Even in her absence, he kneels before the memory of the threshold, trying to re-enter a temple that was never built for possession. And yet, beneath all this lies a truth men rarely confess. Losing such a woman feels like losing the divine itself. Not because she is flawless, but because she reminded him of something infinite inside himself. Her presence cracked the mirror of his illusions, showing him both his potential and his cowardice. Her departure does not erase that revelation. It magnifies it. For he is left staring at the shards of who he was before her, wondering if he can ever become the man she once reflected. The red thread glimmers again, the forgotten key. In every man's psyche there is a locked chamber of longing, and she is the one who brushes against it without trying. He feels the door move for the first time in years, and when she leaves, he is left pounding against wood that will not open without his own courage. She was never the key. She was the reminder that the key exists. And here lies the silent provocation. Are you willing to live as that reminder, knowing some will curse your absence more than they cherished your presence? Are you prepared to embody mystery, sovereignty, and paradox without apology, even if it means some will only understand your worth once you are gone? What haunts him most is not the memory of her smile, nor the warmth of her touch, but the way she awakened a fire he did not know lived within him. This is the fourth mark. The woman unforgettable is not merely loved, she is catalytic. She does not exist to soothe, she exists to ignite. Jung would speak of individuation, the painful but necessary journey of becoming whole, and such a woman is often the accidental initiator. Her presence draws forth his courage, his ambition, his suppressed desires, and when she withdraws, he feels not only loss but the unbearable weight of the man he could have become and never did. In her presence, he begins to dream bolder. He stands taller, speaks more vulnerably, even takes risks he had long postponed. She awakens him not because she demands change, but because she embodies change itself, fluid, alive, unpredictable. Her essence whispers to his dormant potential, awaken or be left behind. And once stirred, this potential cannot be silenced. When she leaves, he is trapped in a restless awareness, tormented by the gap between who he is and who he glimpsed in her eyes. This catalytic nature comes not from trying to save or transform him. That would be entanglement, not power. Her fire arises from her refusal to dim. She lives aligned with her truth, her art, her voice, her body, and in doing so, she forces others to reckon with their mediocrity. A man feels naked in her presence, not because she strips him, but because her light reveals what he hides. This is why she lingers, because she became the mirror of his unlived life. The micro-action here is to cultivate the fire of your own becoming. Do not wait for others to ignite in your flame. Burn regardless, burn relentlessly. Create, speak, move, love without waiting for permission. The unforgettable woman is unforgettable not because she gives him her life, but because she fiercely lives her own. In her, men glimpse the rare beauty of freedom unchained from fear. And yet this ignition cuts both ways. To be a catalyst is to be resented as much as remembered. For some, she will be worshipped in secret, idealized as the one who got away. For others, she will be cursed as the reason they fell apart. But either way, she remains unforgettable, because neutrality is impossible around fire. Some will warm themselves by it, others will flee from it, but none will forget the heat. The high priestess whispers again, for she knows that fire without discipline burns recklessly. The unforgettable woman is not chaos for its own sake. She is ordered chaos, storm with a center. She knows when to withdraw into silence, when to speak prophecy, when to let absence sting deeper than presence. This balance of fire and restraint is what makes her not just radiant, but timeless. Here the red thread of the cracked mirror glints once more. For when a man stares at her, he sees fragments of himself, his strength, his weakness, his cowardice, his desire. The mirror shatters and he blames her for the shards, but in truth she did not break him. She revealed he was already fractured, and now he must choose, sweep the pieces under the rug or cut his hands assembling them into wholeness. But the forgotten key remains in the story, hidden for now. He senses it, feels the lock inside his chest rattling, but he has not yet found the courage to grasp it. She walked away, leaving him with the memory of a door half open, and that memory is what he cannot forgive nor forget. And so the deeper provocation unfolds. Are you willing to be remembered not for your comfort but for your disruption? Can you accept that your very existence may awaken longing and loss in others, not because you harmed them, but because you reminded them of their unlived life? To be unforgettable is to accept the burden of being both a blessing and a wound. What lingers after she departs is not just memory but myth. He begins to tell stories about her, even to himself, polishing the edges of her presence until she becomes larger than life. This is the fifth mark of the unforgettable woman. She transcends biography and becomes archetype. She stops being merely herself in his mind and becomes symbol, the one who awakened, the one who slipped away, the one who taught him what he did not want to know. Jung would call this projection, but projections rooted in awe do not easily fade. They are stitched into the unconscious, replayed in dreams, resurfacing in quiet moments he cannot control. Her mythic quality is not crafted through perfection. It is born of wholeness. She allows contradictions to live within her without needing to explain them away. She can be radiant one day and shadowed the next, generous yet guarded, nurturing yet uncompromising. This complexity resists reduction. Men who try to define her find themselves chasing smoke, and smoke is unforgettable precisely because it refuses capture. The more he tries to pin her down in memory, the more she expands beyond the borders of his comprehension. This myth-making is not about her, but about what she touched in him. She represents his anima, his inner feminine image, yet she does not conform to it. Instead, she disrupts it, forcing him to confront that his projections are incomplete. He wants her to be savior, mother, muse, or lover, yet she refuses to be only one. She is all and none, and in this resistance, she forces him to expand beyond narrow definitions of love and self. When she leaves, he is left with a psychic puzzle, one that gnaws at him because it cannot be solved with logic alone. The microaction here is to embrace your contradictions instead of sanding them down. Do not flatten yourself into consistency for the comfort of others. Hold your tenderness and your ferocity, your silence and your roar, and let them coexist. Men may struggle to grasp you, but they will never forget you. For what endures in memory is not what is simple, but what is layered. The unforgettable woman teaches that coherence is less powerful than wholeness. There is a danger, however, in becoming myth. To him, she may become idealized, lifted beyond the human, and this too is a kind of prison. Yet even in this distortion, she lingers. He may spend years comparing others to her shadow, seeking in new faces the echo of a presence that will never repeat. Some women fade into the stream of experience, but she becomes the axis around which his story bends. To encounter her is to encounter a turning point, and turning points are never erased. The high priestess archetype manifests most clearly here. She is the keeper of mysteries, not because she withholds, but because she cannot be exhausted. Every layer revealed births another hidden beneath it. Like the moon, she changes yet remains, and in her cyclical unveiling, she reminds him that depth is infinite. He forgets the shallow waters he once swam in, because after the ocean, rivers cannot suffice. The red thread tightens now. The cracked mirror he once stared into reveals not just fracture but a hidden door. Behind it lies the forgotten key, the symbol of his own unclaimed power. She never gave it to him. She simply stood in such a way that he realized it was missing. And now, haunted by her memory, he is compelled to seek it. Whether he finds it is not her responsibility, for she was only ever the reminder, never the rescuer. And here the provocation. Are you willing to live in such a way that you become myth, even if misunderstood, even if placed on a pedestal you never asked for? Can you accept that unforgettable presence comes with distortion, that others may twist your image in their stories, yet your essence remains untouchable? The woman men never recover from is not remembered because she performed perfection, but because she dared to live as symbol and soul, uncontainable and whole. There is a certain cruelty in memory, a cruelty that does not fade with time. He may move on, he may marry, he may build entire lives after her, yet in moments of quiet he returns. Not to the arguments, not to the imperfections, but to the raw essence of her being. This is why some women are never recovered from, because they etched not merely emotion, but transformation into the marrow of a man's soul. He is no longer who he was before her, and that irreversible shift ensures she remains present even in absence. The unforgettable woman carries a depth that unsettles time itself. Years pass, yet her presence feels immediate, as if she had just left the room. This is the haunting of archetype. Jung would call it the persistence of an inner image, an imprint on the psyche. But in lived terms, it is the way she forced him to see himself, and once seen, he cannot go blind again. He may resent her for it, may idolize her for it, but in either case he cannot escape. She is not the ghost of love, she is the ghost of truth. And this truth is not comfortable, for what she showed him was not merely her light but his shadows. She revealed how he hides, how he clings, how he fears. She revealed the ways he shrank from becoming, and in doing so she awakened a hunger that will not rest. This is why he dreams of her, not because of her beauty or her laughter, but because she was the threshold. Through her, he stood at the edge of a greater self. And when she left, he fell back, yet he cannot forget the taste of standing at the border of his own becoming. The microaction here is to stop trying to erase your own impact. Women often fear being too much, leaving scars, being remembered in ways that burden others. But scars are sacred. They are the evidence that transformation has touched the flesh. To be unforgettable is to allow your presence to change others, even if they resist, even if they fail to thank you for it. Never apologize for being the threshold through which others glimpse their own truth. The high priestess sits again in the story, silent, watchful, holding the duality of blessing and curse. For to embody such archetype is to accept loneliness at times. Many cannot stay, many will turn away because depth terrifies as much as it seduces. Yet the priestess does not close her temple for fear of loss. She keeps the veil, she guards the mystery, she holds her station. She knows her role is not to be kept but to be remembered. The red thread draws tighter still. The cracked mirror that once revealed only fracture now reveals a pattern in the shards, a map. Each piece he clings to is not a fragment of her, but a fragment of himself. And the forgotten key whispers from the edges of his dreams. The door is his to open, the journey his to take. She was only ever the catalyst, the reminder, the myth that refused to be reduced. And so the provocation turns inward. Will you dare to walk as the threshold, knowing that your absence may echo louder than your presence? Can you carry the weight of being both blessing and wound, both catalyst and myth, both remembered and misunderstood? The woman men never recover from is not a role to perform but a truth to inhabit, an unwavering embrace of presence, mystery, sovereignty, fire, and paradox. But what happens when you no longer fear being unforgettable, when you stop softening your edges for comfort and instead sharpen them into clarity? What happens when the cracked mirror finally reveals not his reflection, but yours? The final truth sent. Reichs not in thunder but in silence. The unforgettable woman does not set out to be unforgettable. She does not rehearse mystery. She does not perform sovereignty. She does not calculate the weight of her absence. She simply lives in wholeness, and that wholeness cuts through illusions like a blade. Men cannot recover not because she bewitched them, but because she revealed the poverty of their half-lived lives. To encounter her is to glimpse the ocean after years of drinking from shallow streams, and there is no returning to thirst without memory of water. This is the culmination of Jung's insight, that what is most magnetic is not perfection but integration. The unforgettable woman has walked through her own shadow, faced her own demons, and refused to amputate the pieces of herself that did not fit into society's script. She has married her contradictions, and in that marriage, she radiates a wholeness so rare it feels divine. The man who meets her sees more than a woman. He sees possibility itself, and when she leaves, he mourns not only her but the man he could have become in her presence. Here lies the red thread's resolution. The cracked mirror that haunted him, once a symbol of fracture, now becomes prophecy fulfilled. For it was never her reflection he sought, it was his own. She was the reminder that the mirror must break for truth to emerge. And the forgotten key, hidden in every glance and every silence, was never hers to give. It was always his, waiting for his hand, waiting for his courage. She awakened the awareness of the lock, but only he could open the door. This is why he cannot recover, because recovery requires transformation, and transformation requires the bravery he has yet to claim. For the woman who carries this archetype, the final act is release. She knows she cannot stay to guide him through the door. She cannot sacrifice her sovereignty to soothe his wounds. She carries the fire onward, lighting her own path, knowing some will remember her with longing, some with bitterness, but all with truth. And in this release lies her deepest freedom. She does not live to be remembered, she lives to be whole. The micro-action for you is to take one moment today and sit with the parts of yourself you often hide. The jealousy, the fear, the tenderness, the hunger. Invite them to the table. See if you can hold them without judgment. This act of integration, repeated day after day, is the seed of wholeness. It is what makes presence magnetic, what makes absence unforgettable. You do not need to be flawless to be remembered. You only need to be real. The high priestess archetype closes the circle. She sits still, veil drawn, guarding the mystery of the soul. She does not beg to be unveiled, nor does she resent the misunderstanding of those who cannot see. She knows her power is not in being comprehended, but in being true. She chooses, she blesses, she departs, and her essence remains like incense in the air, subtle, haunting, impossible to grasp. And so the invitation is simple yet piercing. Dare to stop chasing forgettability. Dare to live in such a way that your presence cannot be erased, not because you cling, but because you embody. Men recover from fantasy, from performance, from roles. They do not recover from truth. Share the moment you felt most empowered in the comments below. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.